Welcome to this session of the Beyond the Veil Summit, where we'll explore the nature of the veil between the worlds. I'm Lisa Bonnice, your host, and my guest for this session is Ericka Boussarhane. Our topic today is discerning everyday messages from beyond the veil and how we carry their voices, love, and life stories. International psychic medium Ericka Boussarhane, also known as the Psychic Diva, is an author, radio personality, public speaker, film producer, event planner, and professional psychic medium who received a kidney transplant and now communicates with the donor. Her services are sought after by people around the world. She's a trailblazer, encourager, and motivator for people everywhere, providing poignant reconnection with the past and enabling people to reconnect with themselves. And she's here with us today. Ericka, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us. Welcome.
Thank you so much. It is such a pleasure to join you today.
Yes, and I can't wait to dive in because you've got a lot of stories that you can share, and we'll get to a lot of them, but I'd love to start with this one. How has being a deceased kidney transplant recipient affected your psychic mediumship abilities? I've always wondered about that.
Well, after I received my transplant in 2019, I live already vacillating between the worlds of the living and dead. But once I had that kidney inside of me, I craved a lot of the same things that this gentleman craved. I ate kidney beans for 3 months in a row, beans. And I didn't even have to find the donor because he lived with me daily. He speaks to me, he shares messages, and I really feel that he is one of the main motivating forces behind a lot of the philanthropic work that I've done recently. And this whole desire to not only talk about kidney transplant donation, and donation in general, but to share messages and how that our loved ones are not so far away in heaven. Heaven is right here with us. And so there are many ways to connect with our loved ones. And I feel that he really wants me to help everyone understand how to be the medium within themselves.
That is so interesting. If you don't mind, I'd love to ask 1,000 questions. First of all, what is your theory on how having somebody else's organ inside your body, how does that allow you to have this sort of, I guess it's sort of a special relationship? How does that work in your view?
Yes, it is definitely a special relationship. I believe that I inherited a lot of my psychic ability, as we all do, from the genetics, from our DNA. A lot of these abilities, male or female on the side, are passed down from generation to generation to generation. And then you throw in someone else's DNA. And I think this gentleman was very intuitive because I just feel that my abilities, my clairvoyance, because we know as psychics and mediums that our abilities will change over time. We can start out being very clairvoyant, then we become very clairaudient. So it does change. And since he has entered my body, it's almost like I've got extra helpers that I never had. I have a helper that is with me. I call my helpers anyway, my angelic entourage. But he has come aboard and I have watched the synchronicities. And I just say all the time, thank you, not only for your donation, your gift, but for you to walk daily in my life and open doors and just put me in places to change lives. And I thought I was doing that before, but he has just blew the roof off of this ability and just laid people, transplant recipients also in my path. So I'm just so grateful to be able to say, yes, if you get a transplant of any sort, you do carry a part of their DNA. You might also pick up some of their habits, good or bad, but that connection of them that their loved ones want to touch, sometimes the person that carries the heart of that connection is definitely transferred in intuition.
Wow, that is so fascinating because, as you said, you'd already been doing this work for a very long time. Did you have, before you had this transplant, did you have any notion that this would happen, or was this a surprise?
It was not a surprise at all because I had my transplant 7/31/2019. My birthday was August 2nd. And I was told prior to my birthday that I was going to get the best gift ever imagined for my birthday. 2 days before my birthday, I actually got the call telling me to rush to the hospital, that someone unfortunately had passed and there was a kidney for me. So I knew it was coming, and I kind of had an idea who would give me the kidney. I've always known it would be a man, and I always kind of knew his story. And again, he talks to me daily. I have not looked to find his family because I know that his family will find me, and that is a blessing.
Wow. Wow. That is just so very fascinating. If you don't mind, I'd like to just shift subjects here because you produced an award-winning documentary called Beyond the Grave, Unforgotten Voices. And if I understand correctly, it features powerful stories told by those who've experienced the loss of a loved one. And so obviously, as I said, you've done this work for many, many, many years, but what inspired you to actually work on this documentary?
Well, one of the changing things that wanted me to create this documentary is that I watched loved ones in their grief tell me so many times, I found you because I needed someone to speak to me, to tell me about my loved one because I didn't feel them around me. I didn't hear my husband. I didn't smell him. And so I needed a medium. And I am always that first person to say, no, you didn't need me. You just need to learn how to listen. And so this documentary was really just the families being able to tell their story of their loved ones, how they died, how it affected them, how grief changed them, interactions with mediums, not just me, because some of them, met other mediums. Some of them never needed a medium because they were able to relay those messages from their loved one beyond the grave that they shared. Some saw birds, some found pennies, some had visits and dreams. Others had the unmistakable feeling of a child just encompass them in love. But the real reason is because some of the stories were very heartbreaking. We had one young man who was in the Dozier School of Boys in Marianna, Florida, and he attempted to commit suicide 30 times and eventually did 30 at the 30th time. And he was only 30 something years old, but he had gone through that whole program of rehabilitation and went through a lot of abuse. And he had a story to tell. And I wanted to be able to allow these families to tell their stories in their words because, I had been relaying these messages, but my real biggest thing is I want to empower everyone to listen to those synchronicities, use the clairs, use that letter to your loved one. There are so many ways that we can learn to connect with them. We just have to pray, meditate, and listen.
I'm glad that you brought up synchronicities, signs, etc. And I know a lot of people, I guess, if they haven't got a lot of experience, if they've only had one or two people pass, they often overlook these symbols. I had a friend who her husband passed, and his wedding ring kept moving around the house, and she at first was like, I don't know, I must be moving it, and she finally realized she's not moving it, something's going on. But it took her a long time to really sort of realize that this was a message or a signal of some sort. Why do you think people are is it hesitant to recognize them?
I honestly think when people don't see the signs, it's because sometimes they're so far in their grief. In order to have our loved ones come to us, the medium is known because we can raise our vibration and connect to the spiritual world. The everyday person who's psychic and maybe have mediumistic ability, or just the person who wants to talk to their loved one, a lot of times they're in a state of grief. So it is more difficult for them to have their loved ones connect. And when they do connect, I think a lot of times they oversee things. They think too hard. They want the whole, I think, table to rise, or they want, the big loud bang in the night, or they literally have watched ghosts and they expect, their loved one to appear like Patrick Swayze, And so when those subtle things happen, like the dragonfly that lands on you, or your name being called at night, or, the cardinal appearance or the blue jay appearance, or, it again can simply just be that smell, that feel, that radio that plays your song, that memory that pops in your head through telepathy. I think that a lot of times it takes so many different synchronicities to happen, that so many knocks on wood before they finally see it. Because someone could have a dream about a loved one, another person could tell them, and it might take 15 different people giving them a message from heaven. And then once they really understand it, those messages flow, and then they believe. But it takes a little while for them to.
It does. And you mentioned the movie Ghost. If I recall, it was really hard for Patrick Swayze's character to learn how to move a penny. And when I heard my friend saying that, her husband's wedding ring kept moving to all these different places, like, do you know how hard it was for him to do that?
Yes.
Again, in your experience, is it difficult for them to reach through to this side as hard as it is for us to reach through to them?
It is, and that's why we encourage people to meditate. I always say praying is pretty much talking, and meditating or crying or sitting in your space with your loved one, and through meditation is just listening. It's nothing woo-woo, it's nothing hard, but it's very difficult because our loved ones are in this wonderful place and they come down here and they share these messages of encouragement for us. And oftentimes it's difficult. They have to manifest that energy. A lot of times they'll pull it from the air. And that's why we get cold spots, because they manifest that energy from the air. So when you feel those goosebumps that we try to debunk, that's them really encompassing the energy in the air around us. And so, yes, it takes a lot of energy. And for mediums that do platform and galleries, you'll see they are exhausted. We're physical. We're not even a spiritual body or etheric body, and we're exhausted. So yes, unfortunately, it does take a lot of energy. So when they come and knocking on the door, guys, make sure you listen, because like you said, they do so much to give us messages of comfort. And unfortunately, sometimes we just don't see them.
Yeah, totally. So, well, thank you for addressing that. I think that's really important. Now, I know one of the other really fascinating things to me, anyway, about your work, we've known each other for many, many years, is that you also work as a cold case. Would you call yourself a cold case psychic? What phrase do you use?
Well, technically, when I started the cold case, I call myself a reluctant psychic detective because it started for me when I was in college. Loved Unsolved Mystery, would watch the show all the time. Didn't realize that I would become a part of the show because the ladies that were on the television started entering my dream state. And you're talking about scary, some of the circumstances that would happen to them, the murders, the kidnapping, the rapes. I started to feel those things were very overwhelming. And so later on, I did some work with different agencies and online, and then I stopped it. I had kids and I wanted no part of it, moved into a haunted house, and it all started again. So I went to my local sheriff department here in Pensacola where I live and started working cases. I was a daycare owner by night and a psychic detective. And unfortunately, I have had the opportunity to locate some bodies, but I think my gift more so is used to help families with closure, and to answer some questions about maybe some questionable deaths that loved ones just really want to know, are they at peace, and what happened to their loved one.
If you don't mind sharing a story or two, like the most monumental mediumship experiences you've had.
So I was inspired to do some window clings because I really believe that our love never dies. And I feel that our loved ones are just a breath, just a thought away. And so I met a young man by the name of Levi. Levi is just a beautiful soul. He was very young when he passed. And I met another gentleman by the name of Lee. Both of them were very young males, and they were very life-changing. One committed suicide. The other one, I won't really disclose his death, but through that interaction, Lee left rainbows every place I'd go. I would say, "Hey, Lee, because there was a rainbow, would appear in my room, and I needed to contact his mom because she wasn't doing very well. Her grief was overwhelming, losing her only son. Tears me up thinking about it. So anytime I'd see a rainbow, I knew I needed to either pray for mom or that Lee was around. And in my darkest times, rainbow. So I decided to do these things because they're little window clings, and you peel them and they peel clear. And I have all different kinds, but my favorite ones are the blue jay that we often see with our loved ones and the red cardinal. And Lee, one time during a reading for his mom, the first time I'd ever met her. And when I say this young man was around 18 years old, the wisdom of this young man was beyond his years. He said to me very clearly that he was invisible. This is to his mom, like love and faith, but he was present. And I thought from an 18-year-old, I don't even think he was 18, I think he was 17 at the time, what profound, impactful words, that our loved ones are like love and faith. They're invisible, yet they're present. So I decided to kind of paraphrase that and put that on the bottom of these clings. And when they are on the window, rainbow, my Lee comes through. And it reminds us that no matter how dark times might be, that God will always create a rainbow in a dark place.
Well, that's so beautiful. Thank you so much for that. That's beautiful. So, what do you suppose it is about? Is it something about your personality, your astrological makeup? What is it about the way that you specifically work that allows you to do the cold case type work? Because that's got to be extremely difficult, and not every medium does that type of work.
Well, I think sometimes I'm able to do the cold case work because I had a psychology background. I went into childcare, so that wounded healer Rollo May has always been a part of my energy, and I'm very much a protector. I'm a small bulldog, and so there's a fighter energy in me. And people say, Ericka, you're not scared of much, and I have to believe them because I'm not. I think that the reason why these cold cases and these people come to me, I think they're just drawn by my energy. And another case that would be really interesting to talk about in Pensacola, there was a girl by the name of Samira Watkins. I did find or talk with police and kind of locate them to her body in water. She was 3 months pregnant. So at that time, the maternal instinct in me, and I had met her prior, so she was able to connect to me. But that mama bear, find this girl, I need to find this girl kicked in. And I was able to help her family as well grieve through her passing. And she was murdered. So it was a very sad, sad situation. But I think that they're drawn to this fighter energy in me, this I won't give up. And so it is hard, though, because I think with that work, a lot of mediums don't do it. And I've ran from it at times because it hurts so bad to have to not be able to sometimes give those families the answers they might need. And it's a very low vibrational kind of thing, because sometimes you want to give those messages of love and hope and yes, and sometimes it's sadness. It makes me cry, it makes them cry, but it is sometimes more healing than hurtful. So I enjoy it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, when you first started working with various police departments, were they skeptical or did they come to you? How did you get into this?
Oh, police departments were so skeptical. I remember when I went down to the Escambia County Sheriff Department the first time, Mark Meester was the detective at that time. And basically, I kind of convinced him in a way that I can't really say. I remember another time I had reported a case. I was reading a lady and I could see her daughter being abused. And so I went to another sheriff department. I took the little girl, long story, to the sheriff department with me and her mom as a support. And the cop says, well, what makes you think that you saw that? And I said, well, let me tell you about your haunted house when you lived in Texas. And he looked at me and he said, "What? How do you know that?" I said, "The same way I knew what that little girl told you." So yeah, I just honestly think that once you prove what you can do, they will listen because they want help from every place they can get it. And whether you're out there and you want to help law enforcement, go to them. They might think you're crazy. It doesn't matter. You do what your heart feels is right.
Yeah, now you mentioned also that you lived in a haunted house. How did that work out?
Oh, so I actually ended up buying a house next to power lines. Go figure, right? Constant energy source. And so I was unfortunately not the only person that was haunted in that house. A lot of the family members and friends that would come over had experiences. Tenants after we rented the house had experiences. But it actually became the perfect storm. I had left my abilities, being afraid of them, as many of us are. We have abilities, we set them aside out of fear. I had set those abilities aside, moved into this haunted house, and it became the perfect storm. The ladies would come again, the men walking down the hallway, the dead men that weren't always traumatic deaths. Sometimes they were people that I would have met at Walmart, go figure. And so, yes, that was a wonderful thing to make me do this for a living. But it took a lot of pressure because I lived in the Bible Belt. And as we shift, we know that, we either think we're crazy or, there's so many other connotations that keep us in fear. So I encourage anybody, live your truth, find your ability, don't fear. Definitely learn how to tap into that energy. Definitely learn how to talk with your ancestry, your angels, your spirit guides, because they're here to help us in this journey of life. We're walking each other home, and they're here to help us every step.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, let's rewind just a bit since we're on the topic of learning how to do this. If somebody is getting synchronicities, the cardinals, whatever it is, the symbols that they're recognizing as a loved one, trying to get through to them, how can they, I guess, maybe take the next step into creating more of an actual communication instead of just I'm here, look at this symbol?
So I always tell people that we start in psychic ability with ourselves. We have to know our own psychic temperature. We have to know that we're in a good place. If we need counseling, we might need counseling too. But what I start with is I tell people that a lot of times it's unfinished business from us to them, not from them to us. So the best thing to do is to write a letter to whoever it is that you want to communicate with. Spill it out. It's kind of like saying, this is what I want. This is what I would like you to show me. So, and this are the things that I really needed to say to you. And that's what I usually tell them to start. Write a letter to your deceased loved one. Get it all out, okay? So you kind of take away the emotion that could keep them from coming down and communicating. The second thing I always do is tell them, whether you're religious, find you a meditation that works for you. I love progressive relaxation meditations because if you have that drunken, monkey mind that's going all over the place, it'll help you relax. You'll focus on different areas of your body as they tense and release. And it'll go down to the feet and you'll ground in and you'll circle usually up with energy, white light and protection. And then you ask all your loved ones, your ancestry, your angels. I call upon the archangels around me to protect me. So you're safe, you're okay. It's not an exorcist thing. It's not the fear. And then you simply just talk to your loved ones just like we're talking. I always tell people you can talk with them through telepathy, which is in your brain, mind to mind, or you can speak to them this way. They can hear you either way. But you just step into that elevator and they'll do the rest and acknowledge every little thing that you get. A lot of times when you get to meditation, I always tell people, stop walking up the stairs. You don't have to. Go to heaven by going to the elevator, pushing the heaven button, walking inside and just allowing yourself to go to heaven in the elevator. It just helps meditation so much easier because those stairs are hard to walk sometimes in meditation.
They certainly are. Now, another interesting thing that you do, you have so many things. You also lead locally historical haunted oh, did you see my light flash? That happens every time. I'm getting into something that there's communication coming through. The tours that you lead, that's just so fascinating. What places in your area have you found that are haunted? And do people who go on these tours, do they actually experience things as well?
Pensacola, no matter what St. Augustine says, is the oldest city in Florida. And I am so blessed and honored to live there where we have white, sandy, ghostly beaches. We do a lot of historical tours down in Pensacola at the Seville Quarter Restaurant, the Victorian Inn. We've done the Little Theater. We've done just all different locations. And yes, it's not just me, the medium, saying there's a dead person there. There's activity that happens on our REM pod, our K2 meters, our equipment. People actually experience these live interactions with spirit. One of my pet peeves is that you'll go on a ghost tour and someone might have been seen in the 1800s and they might have seen that ghost one time and that's it. No activity, nothing that's happening current. All of the ghost tours that we do here, we have interaction with current spirits, intelligent hauntings that just want to communicate. They don't have a problem with it. They'll turn a REM pod on, they'll turn a K2 meter, you'll get EVPs. We've had people leave because they didn't believe when they came in, but yes, they did when they left. So yes, I love showing people that, again, I always say that our spirits, our loved ones, our ancestry are around us all the time. And sometimes people that don't even belong to us, they just like our vibes, so they hang out.
Well, you talked about these devices. I would love it if you would tell me more about them. I don't know many people who've ever actually used one. So how do they work?
Well, you can take something as simple as a digital recorder and talk with your loved one, your cell phone, your voice memo, and just let it play and see if you hear something back. There have been many people that have told me, my grandmother called us after she died. So they will manipulate electronics. That computer that will not work in front of you when you're thinking about a loved one, sometimes it's because they're messing up that energy. That light that keeps popping in the house is not because, you're having an electrical issue. So these devices, we use the REM pod, which is basically a measure of electromagnetic fields. We use K2 meters. We use apps on the phone that are available. But I love to use dowsing rods. Dowsing rods are a thing that I love to use. Dowsing rods have been, around since forever. People use them to find water, to find gold. We use copper dowsing rods and we ask the people to hold them up and they usually will close for no or stay open, so we kind of teach them how to use different divining opportunities for them in their home. What I don't encourage though, is that if you're wanting to talk with your loved one, don't become obsessive about it. Know that your loved one will definitely communicate with you in different ways, but I don't encourage people to try to always use like the Ouija board every day or the dowsing rods every day to speak with your loved ones. I tell them use your psychic ability, use your clairvoyance, your clairaudience, your clairsentient, your all of your clairs, and they will communicate with you in your sixth senses. Learn to use them.
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned that they do mess with electronics because, as I just mentioned, this lamp behind me, it almost only flashes when I'm doing one of these summit interviews with, for example, Suzanne Giesman. The very first time that happened, I said, "Oh, did you see the light flash?" And she said, "I'm hearing Mom." Well, that lamp belonged to my mom before she passed. I inherited it from her. So every time I would talk to Suzanne, the lamp would flash and she would get another message from Mom. Do you have any idea how this works?
Well, I have found that when I do interviews, especially on Zoom, I will have people behind me. I've also seen spirits that will run across the screen often when I'm doing interviews. There'll be people in the background that'll say that they'll see things behind me. So I'll be interested to see if there's anything that happens during the time. But yes, it's basically, again, they're not the physical form that we are now. And that's, I think, what gets people is that they're expecting Dad to show up like Dad was. They're expecting Mom or their child or something. that body has been shed. It was either cremated or it's in the ground. They're just around us like now in the etheric spirit body, just like the air we breathe, which is there, but we just don't see it. And so, yes, they do manipulate things. And I would definitely say that you will get more of the light flicker tonight. But I also feel that you will hear in your house your mom walking for some reason on wood floors. So I just feel like I'm seeing more of that, and a cat too, by the way.
Interesting. All right. Well, I'll keep you posted. I'll let you know if that happens.
Yeah.
So then let's get, I guess, a little bit more into helping people learn how to do this. How can they, if they're not seeing the signs, the pennies from heaven, the cardinals, the rainbows, etc., is there a way that they can sort of grease the wheels and help this to happen, or are they blocking it in some way?
I think a lot of times people block it. They block it because they don't understand it. You know, we've looked at these movies, The Exorcist, The Conjuring, and all these things, and the abilities that we were born with, this telepathy that we used when we were children before we had communication, it's always been with us. So it's just simply saying through prayer, you know, if you want to go the prayer route, it's just saying, hey, I want that back. Okay, I want that back. And then what is that? I want to be able to hear, you know, and not to be afraid when you hear your name. I want to be able to see. And seeing is not always seeing like I'm seeing you or they're seeing me. Seeing sometimes is when your eyes are closed, when you're dreaming. Seeing is sometimes when you're kind of nodding off or in kind of like your daydream. Sometimes that is seeing. Sometimes seeing is in what we call mind's eye or third eye. So a lot of times people don't understand. They're expecting to see that apparition. Sometimes it's simply closing the eye, thinking about dad, visualizing him, thinking about the good memories, not the sadness, not when he was dying in the bed, but the times when you were fishing on the dock. Those memories bring loved ones back. They bring the higher vibration. We really have to raise the vibration. I love to sing. So I say sing their songs, dance, laugh, have fun times, honor them, look at photos, don't cry, laugh, think about those things. But that's the beginning. Learning how to use your clairvoyance. You use your clairvoyance by really meditating. Meditating is the thing that you would do with that. Learn to listen with your clairaudience, basically learning to tune out your voice, your inner voice talking to you and receiving information from usually the right side, where there'll be these little telepathic things that'll pop into your head. And I always tell people the difference between anxiety and intuition is that intuition will come to you as simple as this. See it, you don't. Anxiety will come to you like like a continuing bullet back and forth. And that's usually where the disbelief comes. Intuition is a memory that comes to you, or put on your seatbelt. That's a good one. Put on your seatbelt. You don't know why. Maybe there's a car accident, but something told you you weren't thinking about it. You were driving. In times of driving and times where you're not really focused on anything, that's when our loved ones talk to us a lot. A lot of times they'll come to us in these private moments when we're laying in the bed, but you can really help that by raising the vibration, meditating, asking, praying, and just sitting still, sharing space with them and listening. And that's what I would say. And follow that gut, that clairsentient, whatever you feel, you get. Don't worry about being right or wrong. Don't focus on the ego. Just say, I feel they're talking to me. I think that's my grandpa. I don't care what anybody says. That's my personal connection to him. So I own that. I accept that that was the message for me. So that's what you do. You just don't disbelieve it. You just own it. You know that it's true, and you ask for more and more and more.
Okay. Wow. Thank you. Now, I want to make sure that we mention your stickers. Where can people get them? I know you've got 3 websites I'd like to mention. One is coldcasepsychic.com. Another is psychicdiva.net. and another one is secondsightparanormal.com. What's the difference between those three sites, and where can they get your stickers?
So the coldcasepsychic.com basically was me staying true to what I began with, being, wanting to be the next psychic detective on A&E. And now my team, Second Sight Paranormal and Forensic Services, we're going back into that whole concept. I have a lawyer on the team, the pilot, criminal justice majors. So we're about to evolve back into the whole psychic detective show thing. That's our next thing. So that's what secondsightparanormal.com is about. Cold case psychics, again, being true to where I started. And the psychic diva is just, honestly, I have probably over 50 mirrors in my house, all antique, all haunted, I'm sure. I love just anything that's flashy and anything that's, Renaissance, old Hollywood. And so even though I'm not a diva by personality, I love grand things. So you put me in a plantation, I'm looking at the china, I'm looking at the mirrors, and just feeling so at home. And I love those old historical things. So that's where the diva comes from. You take me into an antique store, I'm touching everything, trying to read the energy of things and listening in. That's another thing you can do too. Hold that shirt of your loved one, put it on, smell it. Just know that they're with you and just listen quietly and see what they say to you.
All right. Wow.
If you would like to know how to get these window clings that will turn your house into a rainbow to remind you that your loved ones are present, but invisible like love and faith, just go to my website, coldcasepsychic.com. You can buy them on Amazon at my psychicdiva.net store, and you can get them on any of my websites. They are available on Amazon as well at my psychicdiva.net. Thank you, guys.
Well, thank you for all of that. Thank you so much for this really interesting conversation. Is there anything that we're leaving out that you want to make sure that we talk about?
Well, the biggest thing that I want to empower people, I'm all about empowerment. Know that going to a psychic like me or medium, is wonderful, but you are also your own psychic. Your loved ones are just a breath away. They're just a thought away. If you just simply ask them, hey, I need you today. I need you to show up for me. I'm not having a good day. I need you to give me a sign. Sometimes it's not the sign that we expect, but just make sure that you pay attention to what they give you, and they will give you more. Just ask and believe. And remember, no matter if you see them or not, heaven is here, their love is here, and they will show you that they love you from beyond the grave.
All right. Beautifully said. Thank you so much, Ericka. This has been such a fascinating conversation. Thank you for spending some time with us. I know you're so very busy. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
All right. I want to remind everyone I've been talking with Ericka Boussarhane, and I want to thank everyone for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this conversation in the Beyond the Veil Summit.